This is a story that seems to have disappeared from Reader's Digest. It's regarding Billy Graham, his wife Ruth Graham, the televangelist and son Franklin Graham, and the lesser-known Ned Graham. Unlike the many multimillionaires, this is their humble home outside of Charlotte. So Ruth Graham enters the hospital for the last time. During this period and before, the lesser-known brother, Ned, and his wife cared for Ruth, both at home and in the hospital. So while Ruth was in the hospital, Franklin Graham was already talking about burying Ruth at the newly established Billy Graham Library. Ruth didn't like that idea, so she had Ned, the younger son, call her good friend and author Patricia Cornwell, and Patricia came down like a good friend would. Ruth Graham asked Patricia Cornwell to go to the Billy Graham Library, look around, and come get back to her. Is that some place she would want to be buried? Because Ruth didn't want to be buried there. So Patricia went and came back and reported to Ruth and said it was like a cheap roadside attraction with a talking cow that gathered information so that Franklin could pump the people for more money and that sort of thing. Just awful. Franklin Graham continued to insist that's where his mother was going to be buried. According to Reader's Digest, Patricia Cornwell confronted Franklin Graham about the burial, and Franklin said, and I quote, "I'll take it up with the board." A few short weeks later, the lovely Ruth Graham died. She was not buried at her South Carolina home. Franklin Graham prevailed, and Ruth was laid to rest at the Billy Graham Library. A final quote from Billy Graham himself: "I hope that the fundamentalists never pair up with the Republican Party. They bend Scripture around to fit policy."